Hey y'all, welcome back to the Power and Lifting Podcast. I'm your host, Solana Lewis. Today, me and Chris talk about peaking, tapering, how we tend to peak and taper our athletes, and a little bit about cutting, who we think should be cutting weights for competitions, and some insight on our client stories about cutting for competition. So it was a good conversation. I really enjoyed it. I hope you love it. Please, if you're watching this on YouTube, press subscribe so you can know whenever we are dropping a new episode. And if you're on Spotify or Apple, please do leave a rating. And if you're on Apple, leave a 5-star review and an actual written review. Very helpful to help us get the podcast out to more people. All right, let's go ahead and dive into today's episode. All right, y'all. Back. It's me and Chris D. Here to talk about some stuff.
Lots of stuff.
The good stuff. How you feeling? How is it in Cali? What's the weather like over there?
I mean, it's nice. It's getting a little cooler, and I kind of am ashamed to admit it when it gets below like 70 and I start complaining. I'm like, this is so cold, especially since I'm from New York.
Wow, yeah, you
like
suck.
you would think that I would be used to, negative degrees and freezing weather. And then it goes under 70 and I'm like, nope, too cold. Not for me.
Your body just adapts though. Like when I lived in Virginia, like moving to Jersey was so hard because it was just colder and hotter. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do this. And then I go back to Virginia, I'm like, if I'm there for like more than a week, all of a sudden I'll start the week like fine. And by the end I'm like, oh, it's kind of cold. Like I just feel like it's cold now. I'm like, it's literally
is it snowing yet?
No, not at all. It's like nice. Like it's like 55s.
Oh, really?
For some reason. And then at night it does get cold. And today there's like wind, so like it kind of feels like 45. But we've had some nice days. And then like 2 weeks ago it was legit like 70. We're like, what's happening here?
Is winter coming? I don't know what's going on here.
Know. You have a blend of fall and summer weather.
Yeah, right. Oh my gosh.
But then nighttime is winter. Nighttime is totally winter.
That's how it like, because California is more desert, so it's always hot during the day, and then the second that the sun goes down, it gets into like 40s and 50s, and it's such a drastic change. It's like 80 degrees during the day, 40 degrees at night.
It's like that awkward, like wear a jacket around your waist, wear boots for later, but like maybe wear sandals and
bring your sandals and a bathing suit and your winter jacket.
Yes. All right. So we're gonna talk about some basic methods for peaking, tapering, and then go into who we think should be cutting for meets, and then what kind of cuts there are to do for meets.
Sounds good.
All right. So I did start the last time with an answer, so it's your turn to start. When it comes to peaking, what is like your basic typical method for peaking? I'm gonna give you like, I want to be like a newer athlete who's maybe doing their first meet, and you're kind of like doing their first ever, peak and taper for a meet with them.
Yeah. So if it's the first meet, so you're still trying to learn the athlete. So I would usually keep it more, I guess, traditional. So for a peaking phase for me, usually what that entails is more comp specific. So you're getting rid of not the unnecessary, accessories that are basically just gonna generate unnecessary fatigue. So you're gonna keep it super specific: competition squat, bench, deadlift. And then from there, obviously we have to practice your sport. So you'll be doing mostly singles, right? And so usually I would say that most coaches would do something like, working up to a single at a certain RPE or a certain weight, and then doing some back offsets just to get in a little bit of the volume. And so usually I would say a peaking specifically, I've usually about like 6 weeks, give or take, would be like a good phase term. So we keep the intensity high, very comp specific. And then with the goal of just on meet day, readiness. So being ready come meet day. So with the peaking, kind of like the week of a meet is where there's what we call the taper. And I think, a lot of coaches have kind of different strategies, but overall, kind of the same, where there's usually a drop in volume. I used to do a drop in intensity as well, but I've kind of changed my mind over the past couple of years where I'm keeping intensity pretty high. So probably, 80 to 90%, even, 5 days out, and you're working up to a heavy squat or a heavier bench. And then dropping the volume. So you're pretty much doing mostly singles with little to no back off work. And I find really good results with that, even just with the heavier lifters, especially, just because they can generate so much fatigue with some of the back off sets. So usually kind of like that taper where you're just focusing on intensity can be really helpful.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good stuff. Agree with what you're saying. So for me, when it comes to peaking, I'm gonna give myself the same avatar. The same avatar, newer person doing their first meet. So we're still figuring out what works for them. Now, overall, though, like you were saying, keeping it really comp specific. But in general, I'm like, we are already squatting, benching, and deadlifting. It's already like the whole dang season, quote unquote, because there's no off and on season, is really comp specific. So I may make sure like there's some slight adjustments when we get to the actual peaking phase if I need to adjust the accessories. But for the most part, I'm not really adjusting the accessories because we're kind of doing like if the last block or the last few blocks we have like really consistent upticks and like they're clearly getting stronger and stronger. I'm really just changing like the repetitions. Obviously, we're doing way more singles. Duh, we have to do more singles for sure. And then we're probably doing a lot of working up to a single and back offs. Does depend on the person. Sometimes ascending for like secondary day or something like that. But and maybe even doing more than one single a week on bench press, depending on the actual athlete. I have a lot, I have all women. A lot of them are lighter weight too. Sometimes they just need like 2 singles a week. But overall, it's very specific to doing a lot more singles, lowering the overall rep ranges slightly on accessories, like not by a ton, and especially when it comes to like the main accessories, like really important stuff, like maybe like the belt squat or like dumbbell chest press. Like I might keep the repetitions exactly the same. It might be like 10 and 12. Some of my athletes need like just high repetition, so we don't even change it. So I'll just change it for like the stuff that doesn't really matter. Like, okay, calves, if we do calves, like biceps, shoulder, tricep, I'll do that. As we are building up to peak, most of my athletes, the peak and taper, the whole thing is 5 or 6 weeks. I have some people who do 7, but 5 or 6 weeks. And so you are building up week to week to get that strength, building up the numbers and the actual load. And then when it comes to the actual taper, pretty much 2 strategies here, and depends on the person. If they are somebody who responds incredible on like their week 4 or 5, whatever the last week is, and it's just like boom, we are always like PRing every time, then that's when I'm probably gonna keep it pretty much the same for that week. Like I might only take out the stuff that really means nothing, like literally bicep curl, tricep extension, like that might come out, but I might leave in all of your accessories like for the entire, like, so if there's like we do 4 days of training, day 4 is going to be like comp day, so it might be 3 days of like the exact all the same accessories, everything. Depending on who it is, like I might have to peel back the volume by sets, but I want to keep the intensity the same most of the time. Not all the time, most of the time. And then it's either that or we do an actual full on taper week where you do like a full block and then an additional week of, all right, we're really pulling back. Like we're going to pull back the intensity, but keep the repetition still the same. And then we're going to really pull back a lot on the accessories a lot. And that depends on the person. But I more so do that one, I would say, because I don't have as many people who can handle like, okay, we're going to do the exact same regular week 4 and go into meet, like not change anything. But it depends on the person. Like I actually mentioned in my really recent post, because I had someone compete 2 weeks ago. And I was like, all right, I've had this athlete for 4 years actually, but she's done 3 meets with me in 4 years, 1 last year and then 2 this year. So we did the first meet this year, or her second meet ever with me this year, and training was phenomenal. I pulled back the intensity a little bit on the final like taper week, and her squat and bench just like didn't show up. Her delt was perfect. And the thing with me, I couldn't figure out, was it nerves because she hadn't competed in literally a year and a half? Was
Mhm.
it like we're not used to practicing like actual competition? Because it doesn't matter how much you do. Like, okay, I'm gonna give you a squat command. Like, you don't used to having a crowd. You know how that is. So this meet that we did 2 weeks ago, I wish I had made more changes, but because the training was so excellent, she PR'd every block. So I did a very similar taper, and then we ended up, I'll be transparent, with the same result. And I was like, all right, I have learned my lesson. Now that we have actually done 2 meets back to back, I literally cannot change anything. Like the intensity has to be exactly the same. Like she might even go for like a PR of higher repetitions the week of the meet. We have her do like her secondary day on
Mhm.
Monday, which is like sets of 6 or 7 on squat, and she pushes it hard. I'm like, I think I'm gonna have to do like RPE 8, like we normally do, our RPE 8.5, like a high volume set on Monday to have that fatigue that helps her on meet day. That definitely comes with like learning the client. But that's why I say like some people can handle like a full on taper and pulling back, and some people need like a regular week of training without really pulling back much.
Yeah. And using kind of the competition day as like your day 3 or day 4 training.
Yep.
I think I might have mentioned this on one of the earlier podcasts about I had a client who she was competing but she's from Belgium. So she the way that that federation, it's kind of weird. You have to do a certain number of meets a year. So it's not just like a qualifier, it's like you have to compete this many times. So she had to do a meet just to qualify. So I was like, oh, we're not really gonna to peak for it, right? You're just gonna go in, we're gonna use it as like another training day. And I was like, we'll just kind of, keep it simple. Just we'll go 9 for 9, right? Like keep it around RPE 7, maybe 8 for like your thirds. And she ended up like hitting PRs, going 9 for 9, and all those lift like looked, like she PR'd her deadlift. I'm like, you probably had another like 5 or 10 kilos in you, like easily. So and then like I had done a meet with her before where we actually did do like more of a traditional taper. And she did well, but not to the extent that we did for this last meet. So I was like, all right, well, I guess we're just gonna kind of train through it. And kind of keep that week or that taper week more of like yeah, like a normal, this is week 4 or 5 of your peaking block. And that was really helpful. But again, it's not everyone. Just some people, for whatever reason, she seems to be able to handle a lot of volume more so than other athletes that I work with.
You
Um,
definitely said that on this podcast,
was
and
it?
isn't it the best when like you literally make a plan because you're like, this meets inconvenience, so we're gonna just do whatever, and you're like, oh my god, this is
Like,
what we
oh,
needed the
all
whole time.
right. Yeah. Yeah. So that was helpful. So yeah. So when we um her next meet was like a world like championship. So we didn't really taper for that. We kind of just, it was like her week 4 or 5 in that block, and she did well. So we're gonna keep it that way moving forward.
I love that. How many meets do they have to do a year in Belgium?
I want to say it's 2. So it's like 2 plus worlds or Euros, but I could be wrong.
Okay,
But I know that it's not just about qualifying and hitting a total. You have to compete multiple times.
makes
So
sense.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, very. So I did find so I actually wrote a post on this probably like almost a year ago now. And what the kind of the research says about tapering. And so the one that it looked at was more of a review or a meta-analysis. So it's kind of looking at all the available research and like pool it into one article and like, well, what does it say? And so one of the things that it found is that the volume reduction in most cases, like I said, the girl that competed was an anomaly. is going to be the most important factor. So you reduce volume, keep intensity pretty much the same. So again, like 92% of your 1 RM. And then the final session intensity would be around 70 to 80%. Now, this is just like a survey off of like what all coaches are doing together, but I kind of find that it's for the most part similar to, I think, how you and I would coach an athlete.
That sounds about right. What's so interesting though is like even for myself and Brad tapers me, like we pull back on both. Like we pull back on the intensity. Like the intensity is like week one intensity, like
Yeah.
straight up. And like it works well for me because like I PR'd my squats all year, bench for most of the year except last meet because I messed up, and then like my deadlift went well this year, and I'm like, I just need like a big pullback. Like I need like RP 6 accessories, and then like my day one squats stay the same, but like all my benches and my deadlift is like way
Yeah.
lower.
I'm similar too, is I think I have to do a pretty big reduction in volume and some intensity, because if I'm going for a PR, if I'm in the gym, it's such I have to hype myself up. It's like I gotta be mentally in the zone. I can't just like walk into the gym and just kind of be chill and squat a PR. It's like I gotta like be yelling, not yelling, but like I'm in the zone, right? And that's such like mental energy. So
Yep.
like the week of the meet, it's like the last thing I want to do is try to psych myself up to try and hit these like heavier attempts.
Mm.
So just mentally for me too, I think having like a nice easy taper is more just like from a psychological standpoint easier, as opposed to like shit, I gotta, compete in 5 days and now I gotta try to, work up to a heavy single and psych myself up to get there.
Yep. That makes sense too. That's the thing people like also maybe don't always consider. Is not just like the physical taxing, but like if someone gets really like they have to really hype themselves, that might change how you have to adjust your peak and taper, depending
Yeah,
on like if they're really extrinsically motivated.
yeah. And we talk a lot about, like reducing fatigue in training. But we're usually talking about like the physical or the physiological fatigue, but we're also referring to the psychological fatigue. And especially during a taper week, it's like you want to reduce as much physical and psychological fatigue that there is. So coming into meet day, you're feeling refreshed physically
Yes.
and mentally.
Yep. I have other athletes too. There's one athlete I really have in mind heavy for this one, but it's also a couple of my masters
Mhm.
lifters to do more static training style, where we really like majority of the year we don't really pass RP7 much. We less bench press. Like if we do a traditional like wave load where you go like 6, 7, 8, 9, or 5, 6, 7, 8, like they'd be crushed for like 4 weeks after like the RPE 9 week. And so I have some athletes like that. Like we do the same kind of static like block, and then like big as drop off for taper week, like
Yeah.
RPE 6, everything. Bench press is always different, but squat and dead RPE 6, like everything. Pull back the intensity, pull back the volume for all the accessories, custom accessories down. Let's absolutely have to have it. And like, we really got to chill.
Yeah.
Like, because if I don't do that, like, they're just shot. And like,
Yeah.
that, I find that so interesting too, because I have a good amount of, like, I think I checked recently, I think like 40% of my rosters as masters, and most of them masters too, actually.
I think you said that
So,
before. Like, I feel like you've mentioned that at some point.
yeah. But it's for the most part, I don't have to make many changes to your training versus my open lifters. Now, granted, my open lifter, I don't have 20-year-olds. I have like two. So most of my opens are in their 30s too. But
Yeah.
I don't have to make major changes for the most part. Like maybe slightly, but a lot of women who come to me, like especially in the masters, they come to me like, hey, like I know you work with a lot of masters athletes, like, and they're like, what do you do differently? Because they think about working with me and they want to know if I have something different. And I'm straightforward. I'm like, sometimes yes, need to reduce the intensity over the weeks, and that depends on the person. Like I do
Mm.
have someone who really can't go past RP7 most of the time, but like for the most part, it's very, very similar. it's very, very similar training. Like, I'm still building up your intensity as much as we can, as much as you can tolerate. We still do accessory work. Maybe someone can't handle as much accessory work, but we're still doing a good amount of accessory work. Like, there's nothing crazy different about
Yeah.
it.
Have you worked with women who are like premenopausal?
I knew you were gonna ask that.
Because
I have a few right now who
that
are
I've
going through
found,
menopause.
yes, I have a lady who was for a while, and it was a struggle because a lot of times, like what they'll prescribe to women in those situations is like TRT, right? But if you're USAPL, Powerlifting
I'm
America
not saying nope.
lifter, like you can't take that. And so she was really struggling because she was like, I can't take it because she's taking lifting very seriously, but she was also, because she was struggling. And so when that was going on, it's like we did have to do a little bit more modifications
Yeah.
than we would have otherwise, but it wasn't so much age. I think it was just like the stage of life where she's, her hormones are kind of all out of whack.
Exactly. Yeah. The people who I had going through it, either number one, it doesn't heavily affect the training because they can really revolve their life more so around powerlifting because they're not working as much. So they're like,
Yeah.
okay, they're on top of their sleep and they're eating, and they wait till they feel best in the day to train. So I
Yeah.
don't have to really change anything. I'm like, oh, so you're gonna be at your best? Oh, okay, well then I'm gonna keep it the same. But like, I did have someone who like they were like, yo, like I really feel terrible, and like you gave me like RPH today, and it's gonna be a struggle. So like we definitely do have to pull back intensity, and
Yeah.
it's really like a lot of communication, and like
Yes.
I kind of sprinkle in intensity as we can, as much as we can when we can, but just kind of knowing that like we gonna have to, maybe week 4 will be RPE 7. And that RPE 7 is gonna be lower than your last week's RPE 6. Every once in a while. I mean, it just happens.
Yeah.
But that's rare. But that's just like a communication thing. You don't change the whole program off it. It's like, well, do what's been working and just pull back when you need to.
Yeah. It's more individualized as opposed to like just a general recommendation.
Yes.
So going into that, what are your thoughts on making weight for a competition? So,
Yeah.
I think you and I have both, you have to weight cut, right? Because you're as a 60, what are you,
I don't
60
know
now
when
or
I ever
67?
67.5. I don't
67.
know when I ever didn't need to weight cut. Like I think I've been weight cutting. That first ever meet, I did not weight cut, and I was
Yeah.
like 8 pounds less. Anyways, and then my second meet, I didn't weight cut, but like I'm probably on meet like 20, and I definitely weight cut it every meet after the first two.
So do you still have to cut weight as a 67? Like, what do you walk around with normally?
I I walk around right now. This morning I'm on 55. That
Dang,
we
girl,
weren't supposed to see that number on the
someone's been
scale.
eating well.
It's called a week of not tracking macros and just tracking your protein. Yeah, that's what that is.
I've
But
eaten this week.
in general, I do track the entire time, like 8 weeks of the competition. I walk at 152 to 153, and my weight class is 148.5.
Did you walk around at that body weight when you would cut to a 63?
No. So I was same thing, like 2 kilos over. And then the second they switched weight classes, me and my nutrition coach decided
Your
to like
body
bulk.
weight went up like 10 pounds.
And like, and I tell you, we started to bulk, and within 3 weeks, my body weight went up like 10 pounds. And it was a wrap. I was
Oh
like,
my
oh
God.
my God. It was crazy because I was like, I think my body's wanted this for years, and I just never paid any attention to how my body felt because I just was so focused on tracking macros. I was like, I'm just gonna track. I didn't feel
Mhm.
that bad. I definitely like was kind of hungry, but I didn't feel bad. But I was like, yo, I feel amazing. Like literally 21 days, gained 10 pounds, never lost it. Only gained more.
It's amazing. I remember, God, it's kind of crazy to think about that I used to cut to 63. And the first time that I kind of decided I'm going up a weight class. And so when I was 63, I think I walked around at like, so 63 was 138. I probably walked around at 148, 150-ish. And then I had a really obnoxious cut that I would never recommend anyone doing, and we can go get into that after.
I'm excited to hear about this.
And then I'm pretty sure I've talked about it before. So I moved up a weight class, which at the time was a 72. So that was 158. And so I was like, I'm light, I think when I weighed in at nationals that year, I weighed in. So the weight class was 72. And I think I weighed in at 68 or 69, like maybe it was like 68.5 or something like that. But I was light. And so I was like, after that was going to be World. So I was like, oh, I'm just going to like stay really light. I had a cut for Worlds.
Of course.
Oh my God. And now I have to cut, even as if I was a 72, I'd probably have to cut a little bit of weight. I'm like, oh my God.
Well, do you have to cut now for 70? Well,
Well, so
76
now
because
it's
you're
69 for PA. So which 69 is 152, and I walk around at about 150, about 160.
okay.
I've gotten up to about 165, like I think last winter. I'm hoping not to do that again.
I love how you say you're hoping. Like, there's no plan. You're just like, I hope it doesn't happen.
Thanksgiving is coming up and Christmas, and I'm gonna go home and visit family.
I'm not gonna lie, I'm excited this year. Like, I think I'm not gonna track for all the holiday season for the most part. I might like literally track every single protein thing I eat, because I will get lazy with that every once in a while. It's like, no, my training just tanks. But yeah, I'm probably not gonna compete till next summer. So, and I've never had that long of a
At
time off since like
nationals,
COVID.
is
I
that
need to do something before nationals, but I think I might do regionals, which should be June-ish.
is the Arnold still going on, or are you just not competing this
It
year?
is. I think I'm not gonna do it for the first time. I'll probably still go. Um, I know they want me to commentate, and then I might have some athletes doing it too, so it makes sense to still go. But for the
Yeah.
first time ever, I go as a spectator and just have fun and watch everyone lift.
Yeah. I actually do enjoy that when it's like you're not competing and you can just go and spectate. What was I gonna say? Oh, mistake I made. No, do not recommend cutting weight during Thanksgiving. I had a meet in December one year. This was like when I first started. And I was cutting weight to 63, and my meet was like December 11th or something like
Ugh,
that.
that sucks. Like 2 weeks.
So I was cutting into Thanksgiving. So normally I'm like, yeah, just eat whatever. It's one day, you'll be fine. Just enjoy your family. But I couldn't really because I was 2 weeks out from a meet. So I'm sitting there weighing my freaking chicken or my
Yep.
turkey, and I had to bring my own dessert. So I bought oh, it's so gross. Halo Top ice cream.
Yo, I hate Hilltop with all my heart.
Uh
With all my heart and
it was
soul.
good. I used to when I was cutting weight, I'm like, this is so great. And then I bought it one time when I was just like not cutting, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
what is this?
Yep.
It's gross.
It's hilarious because we all had this phase. I used to eat it all the time because
Oh
I was
yeah.
cutting all the time. And then you're allowed to eat real food and you go back and you're like, what the hell was I
What
eating?
was
Like,
that? I would oh my God. I made this was like when I was like deep in a cut, and I would make pancakes with egg whites and vanilla protein. And that's like just mix those two together. And then I would pour it was like the Walden Farms sugar free maple syrup. And that I
yeah,
was like, these pancakes are great.
yeah. And when
Oh
you're
my God.
hungry, all of a sudden it all tastes
It
good.
all
It's like
it
it's
tastes
fascinating.
phenomenal. And then yeah, having it like when you're not dieting, I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? How did I think this? I swear, like your taste buds change when you're
They
cutting away.
do. I truly believe it all my heart. Like you are deprived of like the stuff that you really want. So
Yeah.
you just all of a sudden your brain's like, this is good now. Okay. This is
Yeah.
good.
If you ever say Halo Top is good, I'm like, you're probably cutting.
You're definitely cutting. And now we have Ninja Creamy, so there's no excuse for Hilltop now. Like
Yeah.
just go buy some Fairlife milk and some fruit.
Oh, so good. So
Oh,
you wouldn't have all of your clients cut weight, correct? Like
nah.
very specific athletes who you would consider would benefit from cutting weight. So who
Yes.
would not recommend cutting weight for me?
So I always say who I don't recommend. If it's your first meet, I always recommend do not cut. And I've only ever had one exception, and I do regret that exception, but I had one exception. Someone came to me, the whole thing was very hectic, but long story short, they were like 3 weeks out from me and begging me for help because their coach just kind of like dropped off the face of the earth. It was their first meet, but their numbers were ridiculous, and they were like looking to go to nationals and like place well enough to like be competitive at nationals. Cause they had
Yeah.
just learned about the sport, but like they've been lifting for years. And I was like, oh. And she was like 5 pounds over the weight class where she would be really competitive. And so I helped her cut and we got there. But that was rough. The whole experience was rough. More so I took over their programming and then did that. That was crazy. But
Yeah.
besides that, it's still kind of the same idea because I think unless you're going trying to get into like nationals, trying to get in some bigger meet, trying to break like an American record or above, not state, American record or above, that makes a lot of sense to cut. Um, if that is not the case, for the most part, I would say don't cut. The only time I've helped somebody cut besides that for like anything that was more so local is if they happen to just be extremely close to the weight class, like extremely close. Like I had one client cut, both my clients actually cut for the meet this past meet, right? The one that I had for years. She does want to get to nationals, but she's not quite strong enough for nationals. But she's like 4 pounds over, and like when we just like adjust the water, but like keep her calories like just as high, she's fine. I'm like,
Yeah.
okay, like the next meet we are gonna see, we can push for nationals. Like we can do this cut. It's not anything crazy. But besides that, I really tried to like avoid it. And I've had a lot of people come to me like beg, like, please let me cut, let me cut, let me cut for the first meet. I'm like, please don't cut. And if you're gonna cut, don't ask me to help you. If you do it on your own, you're an adult and I cannot stop you. But don't ask me to guide you through it. Don't be texting me your weight the day of, like, hey, I'm almost there. Like, no, 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 no. Like, please, please. I'm gonna throw one person under the bus though. I'm gonna throw one person under the bus. My other
Oh.
client who competed 2 weeks ago, who was not the one I've had for years, it was her first meet ever, right? She hits
Mhm.
me up like 9 days out saying like, I'm like, what was it? 2 pounds over or something. And I was like, I didn't even know you cared about your weight. Like I didn't even know how much she weighed because I didn't care. It was her first
Yeah.
meet. I was like, okay, 2 pounds. Okay, you know what? You're 2 pounds over. And she already drinks a gallon of water. They had like the day before, that's it. I was like, I'm gonna just have you eat. She ate her regular breakfast, and then we did like a mini gut cut, which is just like protein shakes and nuts, but like a regular breakfast, hit all the calories. The whole week before that, ate regular food, water, everything normal. Like nothing was crazy. It was just like have some protein shakes and nuts and see if you happen to make weight. And I was like, if you don't make weight, like I'm not going to allow you to stress out over this. It does not matter. That was the tiniest adjustment ever. Her friend tell on her. She made weight. I get told that she was doing hot baths and spitting and blah blah blah, and she went in light. And I was like, I don't understand what happened. All I saw was have some protein shakes. This is why I don't like to tell y'all anything about cutting because you came to me. And so I was like, really? Like you really did all that? I said just have some protein shakes.
I think
Yeah.
people don't realize how, so there's obviously a big difference between like when we say cutting, right? There's a lot of different ways that we can cut. Doing an official diet where you're dieting down over the course of several weeks. There's like the water cut, which is probably a little bit more common. More recently, we're doing more of like a gut cut for the usually like 24 to 48 hours before a meet. And then you get into some of these kind of high risk situations where you're something like a sauna. And when you're in a sauna and you're sweating, so you're losing water weight and electrolyte sodium. So if you're in there excessively, and you can drop weight, but you're gonna leave there dehydrated. And I think it's
Yes.
like anything more than like 3% of your body weight, and even like that's kind of a stretch. So like maybe 2% is where you start seeing reductions in performance. And so I don't think people realize that like, yeah, you can make weight, but there's going to be consequences. And especially
Yes.
for USAPL, Powerlifting America, where there's only a 2-hour weigh-in, you only have 2 hours to replenish your water and electrolytes, which is probably in honesty going to take longer than that. So that's why the other federations that are 24 hours, they can probably do more drastic water cuts, sauna, because they have a full day to recover. And you'll actually see a lot of them after they weigh in and they got like the IVs, that they're to rehydrate themselves because they're so dehydrated.
Yes.
So I think
good.
You gotta kind of like weigh, is it worth it to do something like go into a sauna and drop, I don't know, 5-6 pounds or whatever you need, as opposed to doing something like a gut cut where you just shit everything out.
And people don't understand like the refeed process is so critical, just like you said. And like the people I know many horror stories of local meat people. Like I watched them as a referee, like they look like they are not doing great, and I end up hearing they cut like 8 pounds. I'm like, this person is nowhere near, like, your numbers aren't even good enough to like try for like a higher meat.
This is
So I
your
don't
first
understand, you know what I
meet,
mean?
it's
Or
a
even
local
second meat,
meet,
I'm
and
like,
you're
but
like,
why did you cut 8 pounds? And like they don't understand, like, okay, when I have an athlete going to nationals cut, I write out the entire protocol for after. Like, you do need to understand how much sodium you need, the electrolytes you need. Tri-oral packets are absolute for all my athletes. If we're going to do a cut, you need the Pedialyte or the Gatorade to go with it, and then a certain amount of water I have to drink. I'm like, you drink this much water, and then you go take your carbs, and then you go back to water.
and you
And,
stop
I'll
drinking
write
at a
out.
certain time. You can't drink any fluids after this. Yeah, and even when I do water cuts with people, and it's not a lot, like I said, a lot of my lifters are probably more novice intermediate. So most of the time we're not doing any sort of real cut. But they're weighing themselves in the morning and at night. And that way we can track, okay, you lose 2 pounds overnight. So we know that if you go to bed at this body weight, you're going to wake up at this body weight. And then it's like, well, are we at weight or do we need to do something else? So it's like it's crazy. And it's also stressful too, because especially with a water cut too, it's like a mental, I'm not going to say it, mind, whatever.
I knew you were going to say that.
Where like when I have to cut weight and I would drink like, I think it was 2 gallons at one point, like leading up to the meet. So you're drinking 2 gallons of water. And like, yeah, you're peeing it out. But there was like one night where I was 148 pounds and I had to weigh in at 138. And I don't, that was just because I was like loaded up on water and I was so bloated. You could just like,
yeah, you see it. Like, you like watch the bowling ball form in your stomach. And you're
oh
like,
my
wow.
God, it was like, yeah, not cute. And I'm sitting like, it was stressful because I was like, I know that, it's water weight, it's gonna come off. But when you see that on the scale, even though you know better, it's still kind of like unnerving, right? So
Yes.
it's just it's added stress. And on top of maybe you're doing nationals or a bigger meet. And on top of that, or maybe it's your first meet and it's stressful. You're nervous, you have nerves, you want to do well, you've never done it before. But then adding something like trying to cut weight and make weight and have it be this perfect weight at this certain time, but you can't be too low because you don't, it's like you don't want to be too far under the weight class, but just enough. And so it's like all these little variables that are just like not worth it in most cases.
Yeah, people don't understand how much mental stress can affect you on the day. I like the amount of people who I've seen, like, they want to do a cut, even for nationals. Like, I've had athletes who I'm walking through a cut, and I decided next year we need to either make sure you're at weight in advance or you're just not going to cut, because the stress they had, like, I'm on top of everything. I'm like, no, just trust me. But you get off the plane, your weight might spike because you're on the plane, and like you're drinking your water and you're like, oh my God, I'm over. And I'm like, yes, there will be days where like you're bloated and it's going up, but there's a certain point where I need it to drop down, and we're not at that point yet, but they're still panicking.
Oh yeah.
I've had people literally say to me, I got so upset. Say to me during the cut, like, that I'm walking them through, I'm thinking this person actually was an Olympic weightlifter. And I was still walking her through a cut. She told me after she made weight perfect. Yeah, like earlier in the week, like my weight was going up. I literally told her it would go up, by the way, preface it. My weight was going up, so I started taking hot baths at night. This was during the water load phase. I'm talking like 2.5 gallons a day. I'm like, so you took hot baths at night at the end of your 2.5 gallon of
While
water
you're
to
water load.
immediately get rid of the water we just put in your body. Is that what you're saying to me? 4 days out, you're doing hot baths.
Yeah.
4 days out. I love it.
Oh, I got to tell my story. I think that I've probably shared on this podcast, but because we're doing about weight cuts, the last time that I weighed in as a 63 before going up a weight class, mind you, I went 5 for 9 at the meet. Like I did not do well at all. And I woke up and I was like half a kilo over, and weigh-ins were like starting in 45 minutes or something insane. So I'm trying to do the hot bath to cut weight. I'm spitting, but the water, so this is at an Airbnb and this was at the Arnold. And so the water just wasn't getting hot enough. So I'm like, it's not gonna do anything. So that's why I was like in plastic bags, running up and down the stairs. I'm spitting. By the time I get to the Arnold, and it's like I tried to do my makeup, but the time I was sweating, so it was like all my mascara was like coming down my face. And and I'm just like miserable, right? Like I was not fun to be around. I go and I like weigh in, and I think it's like 63.01 to 63.299, and it kept kind of like fluctuating. And so like the judge is like, just breathe out like the air. I just have to get it enough where it like stays. So I'm trying to like get the scales to like be under, and finally it does. And I'm like, all right, I made weight, but I didn't do well. So it's like, and it was at the Arnold, and it's not like the weight cut, it's like at the time I think it was Wilkes scoring.
Yep.
So it didn't really matter the body weight because we were going against everyone in the class rather than each person in weight class. It wasn't like a weight classing. So yeah, it just like in hindsight, I was like, what, it wasn't even worth it. Like I don't know why I did that.
It's like, and then you realize you could have just gotten up, ate some breakfast, came in.
I would have done better probably because I wouldn't have had to do this obnoxious cut. So all of the, going 5 for 9 at the lower body weight, where I probably could have gone, I don't know, 8 for 9, 9 for 9, whatever, had I just not, had to do a whole workout before.
And at that point, your will would have been higher, probably.
Yeah. And I would have probably had a higher score. So who knows?
Yeah. But oh, athletes. Be on, y'all. If you're an athlete, please be honest with your coach. Just be honest with your coach. Especially if you are going through a cut, tell them everything you're doing. Like, please don't just randomly put on the trash bag and run around. Don't get in the dang bathtub 4 days out when you're water loading. That's not the time for a bathtub. Like, just don't do anything but talk to your coach and do what they say. That's all I have to say about that.
Important, the having communication with your coach, because as a coach, it's like you've probably had experience with that yourself, so the like mental anguish that goes along with it. But then you also have experience, so hey, doing this like hot bath 5 days out while you're probably isn't going to be ideal. And I think some clients might know that. That's why they're hesitant to say anything.
To tell you, because they deep down they know that the coach or me, I'm gonna say don't do that. But the crazy thing is, like, as your coach, I have your best interest in mind. Like, first of all, we went through a whole prep together. I put my heart and soul into your programming, into responding to you every day, all day. Why would I not want the best for you? So if I'm going to tell you not to do something, it's so that we can get to the result that we both agreed we wanted. And I feel like it's parenting straight up. It's like, you have the rebellious child. You're like, I'm just trying to guide you so you don't get hurt.
Like the little child, and you're trying to guide them along the right path.
Because literally, I'm like, and I do my best as well to let them know how the experience of a cut's going to go if we decide to cut. Like, I tell them, like, the first few days of the water cut, your weight might spike up. Don't freak out. It's because you're loading up on water. And especially if you're adding sodium to load up as well, it's going to go up. I don't expect it to drop until about 48 hours out. This is the drop. Like I tell them all of that. Like it helps with the nerves. So it's like I try my best as a coach to do that because I know not understanding the process, doing something for the first time and not having any idea how it's supposed to go is very unnerving. And that's when you start doing stupid stuff. Like not eating for most of the day before when I told you exactly what to eat and when to eat it, the timing to eat it, how to weigh it out, everything. And they just decide to skip 75% of their food.
Yeah.
Just to then weigh in too light. And then you're like, that's one more thing I want to talk about. Weighing in too light unintentionally is not good. That's not good. Don't give yourself a high five. That's not good.
One of the things that actually kind of bother me with the current rules is people who total the same, right? But then they went on body weight. And I don't like that rule. And the reason that I don't is because I've had like clients do this, even just against myself, where they're specifically trying to like weigh in lighter just so they can tie. And I wish that they would be like, whoever has it first. So in order for you to win, you can't just tie. It would have to be like above whatever the total is. Because there are athletes who will weigh in light for that reason.
That is true. I will say though, at least they were trying to weigh in light. That's more so
There's
on
a reason
them.
for it, not accidentally weighing in light.
The accidental is like can be detrimental because you lost more water and sodium than you expected. And do you know how to refuel and adjust the plan now because you're lighter than you're supposed to be? You do have to adjust that plan now.
I've had
you need more sodium, more water now, more
in the past who were like at weight, but then felt the need to do a water cut. And I'm like, why are you doing this? Like, no, like let's not. You're fine.
Because they're at the weight, but like, what if I wake up and I gain a pound?
Yeah, and they're so nervous, so they start water cutting, but then or trying to because their favorite lifter did, and and not like telling. I mean, they tell me that they're doing it, but not me giving them assistance. So of course, I'm like, even if you're doing it wrong anyway.
Yes, that's another thing.
Yeah.
I tell people, I'm like, just let me know if you're close to weight. Like, I literally just push back my meal time. Like, do you know I'm gonna eat till 8 p.m.? Okay, all week we're gonna eat till 6 and then stop. That normally takes care of it. I'm like literally, and then like maybe just whatever your water was, have a little less the day before. But like we never did a water cut. Just have a little less water the day before. Call it a day. Like, I don't know, people. I was about to say something though. What was I gonna say? Dang, I feel like it was funny too.
Oh, sorry.
Oh my God. It's not even funny. You were talking about the body weight rule. Okay. So you were saying if you have the same total, person with a lighter body weight wins, right? Do you know? Me and Steve Novi and Matt Gary were talking yesterday because I just had Mandy Ogo on a podcast. She was 7.5 kilos at Raw Nationals, got 5th place, but she and Cassie Carlton both hit 200 kilos to break the American squat record. Okay, so Cassie went first, broke the record because she had the right lot number. Mandy was after her due to lot number and also hit 200 kilos. They gave the record to Mandy. You can't because it's squat. So like she put the number in already.
Oh, okay.
You know what I mean? Yeah. So Mandy goes second, hits 200 kilos. Mandy ends up taking the record. I was so confused.
Because
are you also confused? Yes, she weighed in. I did not know that when it came to lifts, like individual lifts, not total, individual lifts, if you both hit the same number and it's an American record, whoever weighs in lighter gets the record. I did not understand this. I thought it was very plain as day. The person who got it first gets the record. Yeah. That's what I thought. And literally all of us were like, what? And Steve was like, I had no idea about this. I think because Matt told me that's what it was, but he was also like, I'm still kind of confused though. But I was like, what?
There's certain like weird rules. Yeah, like I came in third once. Well, because it was like total, but my Wilks was higher. This was when Wilks was still a thing. I had a higher Wilks, but the total was less. And so, like So it was just, I'm like, it's just confusing. Fortunately, I feel like that's not super common. Those are kind of like those once in a blue moon kind of situations where it's like, oh, okay. But I think, yeah, like the body weight rule, I almost think it should be in weightlifting. My understanding is that it's whoever hits the weight first. So if someone hits a total, in order for them to win, they can't tie, even if their body weight is lower. They have to, go above that in order to win. And I kind of don't disagree with that. What are your thoughts?
I really have never minded the body weight rule for overall taking the total and the
Yeah.
win. Um, and I understand some people might weigh in lighter for that reason, but I don't think enough people do that makes a big difference. And I mean, like, I feel like more people are gonna weigh in lighter when it comes to like dots meets, and just when we have like way less consistency, and that gets on my nerves. But like, as for like the body weight thing, I'm like, but you know your body weight from the very beginning. It's not a secret. So you
Yeah.
adjust the plan and go from there. So for me, like that one doesn't really bother me too much. But I
Yeah.
do hear you though. You're saying like, and it does make sense, right? You want to beat the person by the actual weight you lifted. Like it makes logical sense. It's just never bothered me.
Maybe I'm just salty about it because that's happened to me before. So I'm like, ah, this is a stupid rule.
No, it sucks. It sucks to know that like you hit something, they come after you, hit it, same total, and they win. Like it sucks.
Like, damn it.
Or like,
Ugh.
even watching like I got the Sitco and Just Butner, knowing that I got the Sitco gets the record, but Just wins. It's like crazy. Like she got the record, just came out after her, pulled the biggest deadlift that ever been pulled in IPF history at the time, which
Was
was
this
this last
World
year's
or
world? Yeah,
Sheffield?
Worlds. That was Worlds. That was 2022 Worlds. Yeah. And
But
so
Jess
Jess came out
won,
and matched her. Hmm?
right? Jess, she won 2022, right?
That's what I'm saying. Agata got the record and Jess
Uh,
won, and they got the same total. Jess came after her, had to pull the biggest deadlift in IPF history to match her, and she won. So in that case, it's like you kind of wish like she like out totaled her, but she didn't need to.
yeah. It's crazy. Yeah. It's I think it's cool, especially now how like much bigger powerlifting has gotten. When I first started, it was kind of, I mean, it's still a hobby per se, but I think people take it a lot more serious than they used to. And so like the competitiveness of the sport has like increased exponentially, and it's kind of cool to see.
I mean, I love it because as a coach, it's exciting. Like people care more about it, more people in it. So with more people come more people who can be more competitive in it. And like even me, like I've never trained like, huge name lifters, but like this past nationals, like I still had battles with my athletes who were going for like first place as masters. And like
Yeah.
it was so much fun because like they cared so much. Like we were like, looking at people's numbers in advance, and like you get to do a little bit of game day scouting beforehand. Like it was so much fun because like they care so much. And then as a coach, like they're more willing to, number one, invest in coaching because they care so much. So
Yeah.
then I have a job. And then number two, I get to have the fun of like scouting people and like playing around with numbers at the end for deadlifts and like, okay, like so we need to win. Like it's just so
Yeah.
fun. And you couldn't do that back then where there was less people in it. And like,
Yeah. I
yeah.
think I'm more stressed now when I handle people as opposed to competing.
Of course. Every coach I've ever met
Way
says it's
more
more stressful to
stressful.
coach. Yeah. Because I
Like,
had to worry about someone else, man, not myself.
and then you're watching like they're, like get the squat, get the,
Yeah.
like where like when you're doing it, it's like, I mean, you're thinking it, but like not in that way. It's like, you're hype. I don't know. It's a very different feeling.
It's different and like it's so stressful. For me, third squats are so stressful because I'm like praying to Jesus Christ that I put the right load on the bar for them, depending on how the day was going. And it's the best feeling in the world when they hit it. And then sometimes it's gut wrenching when they almost hit it, but they don't. And you tell yourself, like, if I had just gone 2.5 kilos less for them, that would have been perfect. But you thought they had a little more. And like that's just probably being a coach. Like you look at their training, you look at them and you talk about how they feel, but like you have to put a number on, and it might be 5 pounds too much, literally more like 1 pound too much, but you had to take a 5-pound jump. So like 1 pound too much, and they just can't nail it. And you're like, oh my God, I suck. Like,
Yeah, it's amazing. Well, and then people look, they're like, oh, she didn't do well at a meet. Who's their coach? What is their coach doing? And so it does kind of reflect on you, even if it was something that was out of your control.
mhm.
I do think that or especially sometimes the athlete, it's easier to like place blame on the coach for whatever reason.
It
But
can be. I mean, I feel like that's more so people who don't pay attention to actual meets. Like you can look at
yeah.
someone's history, but like if someone's just a really tough client, or even if it's more like they're a general everyday client who isn't high
Mhm.
level, and a lot of my clients, like they have full-time jobs and some of them have families and like they prioritize lifting, but not the number one thing. And so this like stuff going on with life makes it hard to predict training, and the meet doesn't go like perfect. And it's like that's more so like more inconsistencies in training. I was like struggling to even know what was going on with you. Like,
Yeah,
so that
life
can be
gets in
anything. Yeah. And that's like why I love coaching, because like I have a good blend of like people who take it really, really seriously, number one, and people who like love it, but they're like, but it's not above like, my job. It's not above like I gotta spend time with my kids. Like, yeah.
it's fun. Yeah, nice.
Cool. All right. We done did
You did it.
it. So thank you again for joining me. Do you have any last words? Do I have any last words? Just don't take a hot bath 4 days out from the meet. Go ahead. Any last words for you?
I can't wait unless you absolutely need to.
Yes, please do not like just have a reason and
Yeah.
say it out loud. That's all I'm saying. Like if I say my reason out loud, my reason is literally like I'm competing at prime time at nationals and I want to play as high as possible. Say a reason out loud. If your reason is it's my first meet and Rustwell cuts, like say that out loud and then listen back to it, and think about what you just said and then go from there.
Oh, good. Cool. Well, thanks for having me. I
Of
appreciate it. We'll
course.
do this again soon.
Yes, you will. And y'all catch you next time on the Power and Lifting Podcast.